Well, I want to jump from that joke to another, and I talk a little bit about my home state of Florida, and Ron DeSantis' absolutely batshit redistricting plan. And Joe, we were talking about this before we came on the air. They're attempting to compress all the Democrats into Florida into 4 seats, into 4 super compact seats. You can see them there. Prior map, proposed map. And they've made a mistake, Joe. Talk to us about where you see the valence of the mistake here, because I think they're going to do this, and I think it could really explode on them.
Yeah, it's to do this, you have to make the other district. I mean, you have to make districts that are weakened on the Republican side. I mean, there's this. So to go back, there are 2 demographers who just came out with a report a couple of days ago, or yesterday, I think, in Texas, that have looked at the 5 districts that they created there, and have concluded that 3 of those are going to go for the Democrats because of the demographics that they were based on, with Latinos, Hispanic, all that stuff, that were based on when the Republicans, when Trump got the vote with Hispanics in 2024, is not the case anymore. And so when you start to build these things and you basically base it on where independents were, like even 6 months ago, where Latinos were in 2024.
That's a different world now.
Yeah, a totally different world. I think this is going to backfire the same way. They're going to actually weaken themselves. If this even holds up, but we'll see.
I mean,
what's your take, Rick?
Yeah. So there are 2 things that they really have screwed up on this. The first is the presence of a thing called Amendment 6, passed in 2010. Right. When I was a Republican, I was on the other side of it, and we lost big time. Amendment 10 won with 63.4% of the voters approving of it, which says, during the process of redistricting, you may not advantage or disadvantage any political party, which says, essentially, you got to stop doing partisan redistricting. Now, it didn't stop the Republicans from creating this map, which was explicitly done at Trump's behest. And one of their presenters at the hearing today in Tallahassee stepped on a giant landmine where he was asked, did this district map that you've proposed weigh the percentage of Republicans in the districts? And he said, yes. That's it. The amendment says with the intent. That's it. He just admitted their intent. I'm not a lawyer, but Frank, that seems like the ball game right there. I mean,
I agree. It's a confession. It's tantamount to a confession. Yeah. I get worried about the longer term effect that this has on Americans writ large, which is there's already widespread disbelief and distrust in our system and in free and fair elections. And all of this does, whether it's Texas, California, or Florida now, is tell voters, you know what? Why should you even come out and vote? It's all fixed. And that hurts. That has a long-term impact.
Yeah, I think the Texas situation, where they misapprehended what the demographics were, Joe, as you were saying, is also playing out here in Florida. Those seats they rewrote in South Florida to bump the Democrats out of essentially take every Democrat out of Dade County. They're misreading Hispanic voters in Dade County right now. They are furious with the economy, with the damage the tariffs did to businesses all across South Florida, and with the fact that they've taken Cubans, Haitians, Dominicans, and Venezuelans out of TPS status. And while those people aren't voters, their family members all are. And they thought they were the good ones. And they were here playing by the rules with green cards and getting jobs and all that. Well, that anger is, I think they have kicked the hornet's nest down there.
Right. And if you're basing all this on what the state looked like in the 2024 election in terms of statewide, if the statewide races are, at least in all the polling I've seen, and I know you've looked at some too, Rick, they're close. I mean, David Jolly and Vindman whether they can win or not, but they're much.
Jolly's inside the margin against Byron Donalds right now,
so
which blows people away.
Right. And so that's because independents, other people are moving away from what we've seen across the country. That's true. And then you try to redraw these lines based on that stuff, that kind of stuff. I'm down in Monroe County. That district's is not gonna go Republican. I mean, if they think that that's red on their map, they're wrong about that, in my view. And like I've seen polling down here that says says, that people are gone and done with them. And by the way, I think that Disney, this is what I mean, how this stuff kind of layers up. If the Trump administration going after Disney and ABC and all that, there's plenty of people in Florida who remember DeSantis going after Disney and playing all that fastly. So it kind of compounds and layers on itself in a way that people say, screw this. It's just a bunch of games. And it's like Frank said, it's all bad for the politics of the country overall. But I think they're going to get the most of the hit for that this time around. Now, Democrats have to mean it when they say, hey, in California, we're only doing this time, and we're going to go back, and we've got to do that writ large across the country. But the Republicans are not going to play that ever right now.
Specific to Florida, as you pointed out, we've got David Jolly running for governor, ex-Republican running as a Democrat, who is inside the margin with Byron Donalds now. And Byron Donalds is under terrible fire from all of his Republican colleagues because he's crooked. You got. Sorry, my dogs are here. You got Alex Vindman, who is running against Ashley Moody for U.S. Senate, and he's a little further behind, but he's competitive now.
Yeah,
and if he's a guy who raised $7 million in the first quarter, which that's real money, and it's kind of shocking a lot of people. I met with a young congressional candidate up here in the 2nd district this week, a guy named Nick Zateslow, who was out there going to Republican areas, and they're like, "We don't want these data centers. What can you do to help us? If you'll help us, we don't want these data centers in our taking over our farmland." And he's like, the Republicans are just like telling him to shut up. And if you go and talk to them, they'll listen. They'll give you a fair shot in this environment. So it's kind of fascinating what we're seeing in terms of the change in Florida. A state that I helped make a very red state over time has reached its limit. People are leaving the state. The corruption's making them sick. They don't want to be here.
Corruption is the number one thing in the polls that I'm seeing here. It's corruption, corruption, corruption. And by the way, DeSantis is not a popular dude in this state.
No.
So him doing this, him leading the charge on it, this is, I think, is seen as a corrupt power grab. It goes beyond even, I think, even Texas, even Trump calling on them to do Texas for him. I think this is going to hurt. And with these competitive statewide races here, I think there are going to be a lot of surprises for them when they lose some of these House seats that they think they're like in Texas, they think they've locked it in. They're going to be really shocked in November. We got to do the work.
We got a long way between here and there. Joe, one thing I want to talk about is I spoke to a former Republican colleague the other day who texted me this morning when that Tallarico poll came up showing him leading both Cornyn and Paxton. And this is a guy who is very comfortable with Cornyn. He could hold his nose and vote for Paxton, but he said if he is right now, if Tallarico right now, after they've been spending months trying to bloody him up, is leading both of those guys, he said the draw from down ballot in Texas is going to absolutely shock the crap out of Republicans on election day. If Tallarico pulls this thing off, it's going to pull a lot of Democrats up over the line. And that's something that Beto never quite had that effect. And Colin Allred never quite had that effect, but it's clearly building. And as you've been out in Iowa and talking to folks, you and I have been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. I talked to somebody in Kansas last night who's like, there is going to be a hell of a race for governor in that state. Iowa, every congressional in Iowa is in play.
Yeah.
Every statewide race is now in play. Ohio, it is Ramaswamy's got a new scandal to deal with, and Acton and Pepper are running a great campaign. I mean, this whole Midwestern and Deep South thing is shaking the tree.
Yeah, no, you've got, look, I'm working for Doug Jones in Alabama, Tuberville. Jolly, I think, can do what you're talking about with Tellerico. If Jolly can keep it close or actually get by, it's going to pull up a whole bunch of Democratic vote. That's where I think they're wrong about what they're doing. I just saw a recent poll where corruption was sky high in Florida, and I just think this is like telegraphing this is how corrupt we can be. And people are sick. Like down here, they passed the same kind of thing. They passed that almost 70% said we don't want cruise ships, and down here. And of course, guess what? Tallahassee and DeSantis. Well, we'll just do an end around. Forget what people think. It's like the data center thing. It's just like, screw it. You shut up. We're doing it our way. And that corrupt grab. By the way, Republicans are always local control, state rights, all this stuff. That's just all gone here. It's just complete.
Well, I mean, and one of the things that David Jolly, I think, has a real advantage on is Byron Donalds is all in on Trump and the offshore oil drilling off of Florida. Yep. And he's also being funded by David Sachs and Peter Thiel and these data center weirdos who want to put in over 5 million square feet of data centers in Florida in the next 2 years. That's more square footage than will be built for any other purpose in the state. And it is wildly unpopular, especially with rural Republicans. So it's going to be a crazy. They are really, the corruption is the underlying issue that's going to kill them.
But Rick, I've got an island to sell you, and because like you and I both know, they'll make those AI companies pay for those high utility rates. It won't won't be Florida citizens.
Yeah, sure.
Pay for that stuff. No, they won't be that corrupt. They'll
My God. The corruption issue is near and dear to my heart. I spent 4 years of my FBI career in the number 2 position at FBI Miami. So we had all of South Florida, and the corruption is rampant. Nothing has changed. But what has changed is that the FBI was the answer in Florida to addressing public corruption in a very, very big way.
Right.
And now you've got this bizarre situation where only if Trump hates your guts and wants to do it will the FBI jump and actually open corruption cases. So you've got this festering problem that's not going to get any better, because I fear, the FBI will be handcuffed, no pun intended, in actually addressing the real corruption in Florida.